combustible rodent. Finally, after waiting for so long to get my hands on these things, I really only waited like 3 weeks. We finally got one of these things, and boy, let me tell you, it's probably one of the greatest and at the same time the worst blaster I've ever owned. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have already opened this thing, so I already know what's in here. But if you want a recap of my reaction, well... Come on. Oh, it's green! It's green! Back to the blaster. Of course, it's green. Why would I not getting a green? Green is the only correct color we ever own. You get your Firerat, you get a mag. You know, it's high density foam, but we're not here for the box, we're here for the blaster. Initial impressions for this. You got a nice rubberized grip with that name. You got the grip with their logo. The rubber coating is a little thin, as to be expected. I mean, it's only here so that if you have sweaty palms like I do right now, you can still hold the thing. You got a really nice mag release button, and it is a little bit assisted. Mag release is a little spring assisted, so of course if you have this facing down, it will do that. For you left-handed people, there is no button on the right side. When you push the button, it kind of just poops out. It wouldn't be too difficult to actuate it. I mean, you can technically use like this weird part of your finger to kind of hit the button, or you can just kind of like, you know, go from trigger to here. I'm not left-handed though, so I can't really explain for you left-handed people what to do, because I would do this, but again, I'm not a left-handed, I'm a right-handed person, so for me it's just right there on my thumb. You have this switch here, which is for the slide lock. Let me demonstrate that right now. You know, you have it here for the slide lock, which does that. Now, if you heard the sound, you're gonna think, ooh, that's a little violent for it to be a slide lock. It's only doing that because there's nothing in the mag. If I were to get a dart, and then I were to do that again, you will notice that it doesn't exactly close. In this instance, it didn't. This is because, on my Firerat specifically, I messed with the sealing a little bit, so it kind of seems to be creating like some weird vacuum, or at least I want to say it would be creating a vacuum. But as you'll see in the FPS numbers, you'll see that whatever that little action is doesn't exactly affect the FPS. For me, that's not really too much of a big deal, because I mean, I would only do that when I'm putting a mag in, because otherwise, when I am priming this thing, you know, I'm basically doing it by hand. So I'm essentially going and back with my hand throughout the entire time, because of course I'm also pushing it. First, to actually open the slide, you gotta push these little tabs, and it does grab onto this part of the shell. You do that, you fire, bada bing, bada boom. I think actually it might be closer in size to a Zinc. Now, unfortunately, I don't even have my Gecko to compare it to. The closest thing that I have on hand, probably just this, a Reflex 6, which doesn't really help much because a Reflex 6 is bigger. So for the sake of, I don't really have anything else in common to compare sizes to, we're just gonna do this. From the back here to the longest point of the shell, you're looking at about like 9 1/4. In terms of height, or whatever you want to call this, you're looking at about 8 1/4, 8 1/2 from the very top to the bottom of the mag. When you get your Firerat, regardless of the color as well, you're gonna realize that usually they come with this red barrel. Of course, my red barrel is off because I have a different barrel on it. In fact, I bought every barrel option for this thing. And spoiler alert, if you just don't want to wait until I do the FPS numbers, the barrel doesn't really matter. Again, I will get into that once I show the FPS numbers, because this thing is a little weird. It's quite a strange sidearm. Now, the downsides. Of course, proprietary mag. This is going to be a down thing for a lot of people, because for almost everyone who I know, if it is not a straight talon, it's a sin. I know people who won't even buy angle talons because, oh, I don't want to invest in a different ecosystem. There's a reason why they went with this. This grip is very comfortable. I've had a lot of sidearms. I've even owned a gecko. I prefer this hands down. The other bad thing about this, there is no orange muzzle. I really wish an orange muzzle would have been, included in the box. Clearly there would have been some space somewhere to add it somewhere. You could have easily put it here. It's actually not a big piece. You could have easily put it somewhere in the box. I really would have liked that, because at least that way, if people really wanted to use this outdoors, you could have at least been able to put an orange muzzle on it. But of course, even if this thing had an orange muzzle, it probably would still get flagged out in a lot of clubs. It's going to be in the same situation. Actually, it's pretty much in the same boat as the ZWQ, and where, because it looks so realistic, or close enough to be considered realistic, a lot of clubs just outright ban this thing. There's another negative thing. It's not so much about the blaster, it's really more of the community, I guess we can say, in general. I don't know why people really think that this Firerat is a gecko ripoff or a gecko clone. The only thing these two share in common is a turnaround system. It is not a gecko. I don't care that you say that, oh, but he has a turnaround system. You know what else has a turnaround system? A Scamp, a Venturi, a Zinc. I don't see you guys going after an SBL and calling that a Talon Claw ripoff, when very clearly they share a lot of similarities, but they are not the same thing. You can only do so much innovation in a pistol platform before things start sharing too many stuff in common. Look at the automotive industry, look at the firearm industry. You can only reinvent the wheel so many times. The most innovative pistol design that I have seen to date is something called the Dan pistol. This blaster, like the S100, is just a mixture of all of good things that, people like. In the S100's case, it's, talent. Well, now it can be talent fed. First it was proprietary mags, but then they gave you a printed adapter that you can use to make it talent fed. It hit pretty good numbers. The shell was a pretty okay quality. There were some units that did start cracking for no reason whatsoever. It was a good introduction as a primary blaster. The S200, it's a small form factor. It can definitely hit HVZ numbers, although it has its own problems with its, real steel aesthetics. It can outbeat a stock Mark II once you give it the 1.6 or the 1.8 spring, but that's pretty much where all of the good things go, and it's where all of the other decisions in the way it handles, the way it looks, the way it's constructed, pretty much bring it down. I'm not sure if you have noticed, this thing is only held by 6 screws. You have 2 on this side, 2 on that side, and 2 that hold the muzzle, the muzzle onto, the plunger tube, which is basically seated here, because these long bolts thread all the way to the turnaround system, which is like roughly here in the shell. There's only 6 screws. These 2 things here, there's another one behind here, and this pin, they're all pins. They're all pins. And the very first time you're taking this apart, you're gonna feel like you're gonna break it. You need to hammer those pins, but you also need to be extremely careful which orientation the pins are at. Only one side of them is knurled. You need to hammer that knurl side out, not hammer it in. Example, this pin right here goes this way, but my dumbass was trying to take it out this way. The pins only go in and out smoothly in one direction, because even the video the Monkeemods made of their S200 blaster, I found that some of the pins in my unit were flipped. Example for the slide, my pins come out this way, but for Monkeemods, their pins were coming out this way. Another example would be this slide lock. My pins come out that way, their pins come out this way. You really need to be careful what orientation those pins are at. Just give it a little tap, and then look at the pin. If it's smooth, you're pushing it out the wrong way. You know, put it back in, flip it out the other way. You push it out and it's knurled, congrats, you're doing it at the right direction. Keep hammering it until it comes out. Personally, for me, I find that a negative because you have to keep in mind I did this pretty much 12 times. By the third time, you pretty much know how to like take it apart and put it back together pretty easily. But it's just still annoying, and in all honesty, I would have just preferred dealing with really long bolts. Like trying to put, you know, this is what holds the slide lock and the slide together. So trying to slide the slide in this way while holding the slide lock still with your finger, and then trying to push it in over here, it marks a bad time. And that's really where a lot of people are gonna fumble with this the most. The easiest way I got around to it was to just kind of have it on its side, have one finger in, holding it down, and then slowly pushing this in. But you also got to be careful with the trigger. The trigger is slanted this way, so you have your trigger slanted this way, and you have the catch also slanting this way. So as you try to put them in, you know, the catch is basically bumping into the flat side of the catch, because this is the flat side of the catch. It has a little bit of thickness, and then it slants like that. Now we come to the million-dollar question. Would I recommend you buying this? That's a question that's too hard to answer with one word. Because hear me out. When I said this was the best blaster and also the worst blaster, I meant it. It is the best blaster because I found the version that's in green. But it is the worst because the website where I buy the green one from also sells injection molded geckos and injection molded zincs, and we all know the drama that goes on with that. And trust me, there's already some people who have given me a piece of their mind just because they realized where I bought this green one from. It is the best blaster in the world because this thing can beat a Mark II. Problem, it can only beat a Mark II if you give it the 1.8 spring. But now the 1.8 spring makes priming this thing not the best thing in the world, because to hold this slide, you know, the slide lock still with my offhand, but then I have to push with my actual, you know, firing hand. I have to push forward. You know, I have to push forward in order to actually prime this thing reliably and prime this thing as efficiently as possible. That's why when I said, oh yeah, the way I prime it, this is what I meant. For every good thing that the Firerat has, there's at least one, two, or even three negatives that counter it. The only way I can truly recommend anyone to get this at all would be if A, your club has private events or your club is 100% cool with you running this. B, you do not want a DZP Mark II whatsoever. And C, you already have a Zinc, or you already have a Scamp, or you already have a hobby grade blaster that can hit much harder than this thing can. Of course, because I bought all the barrels and because I wanted to do all the testing, I spent at around $120 for this unit. Keep in mind about this, you know, 2 mags, all the barrels and all the springs, and the metal catch. Probably for the same price, I could have built, you know, a Reflex 6 that would do 8 shots, turret, breech loading, you know, probably would hit as hard as this or even harder. Probably, again, for the same price or maybe a little bit cheaper, that could have been a, you know, a Mark II with a hybrid barrel. And it would have kept the toy aesthetics, which means, you know, it would be legal to use almost anywhere. If I had decided to wait off a little bit and save $80 more, I could have bought a Zinc 2, which would have hit 200 FPS, probably have a lighter spring load. Actually, no, it would have a lighter spring load because I have held one before. It would have a lighter spring load. It would be in the exact same green that I use on my SBL links and my gear. And it could have an orange muzzle because it's a printed blaster. And the muzzle is separate. Can I recommend you to buy this? No. For most people, what they will end up doing is, oh wait, this thing looks like a gun. Oh, proprietary mag. Oh, costs less than a Mark II, but hits worse than a Mark II. I'm gonna go buy a Mark II. I'm gonna go buy a Gecko. I'm gonna go buy something else. Or they'll buy this on a whim because, oh yeah, $50. Be disappointed in the performance because, oh, a Mark II could technically hit harder, and then, you know, either sell this or, you know, again, give it bad name. In terms of that question, no, I can't really give you a concrete answer. It's just something you would have to answer yourself. With all of that being said, I really only did this video because I was bored. I'm not really the kind of person to do reviews because I don't want to be that person that everyone looks upon when they want to do blaster purchases. The only reason why I even did this review was because every single video that I saw of this either only brought up the stock spring or only brought up the full spring, and no one ever looked at the barrel options. But as we learned now today, barrel options don't mean shit. Just focus on whatever spring you want to hit the figures that you want to see. On that note, I hope you guys have a good one, and nerf. This dart cutting jig, have this jacket that's green, we got the green caliber, and we got a sonic green stampede that just fell off screen. 6 of these things that people tend to lose their shit about, 1 of those that fits on over a turbine scar, and green talons. I have a lot more than that one, it's just that I don't want to pull them out because then it'll make a huge mess.